Mosaic, would you welcome Ben Affleck?
Thank you. Hi, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure.
It's such an honor to have you here. So much fun. This is the first time for Mosaic, and I want you to know, 25 years, we've had so many invitations, we've always said no. You're the first person we ever said yes to.
Oh my gosh, a lot of pressure. I hope I'm interesting, or I'll be the last one you say yes to.
Well, I'll tell you, it helped that you made The Town, because it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Thank you very much.
It's a brilliant movie. Argo is incredible.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what to think about Dogma, but...
Well, I didn't write that.
No.
So, just we're actor for hire, do what I'm told. You know what I mean?
But I did get to see your new film, The Way Back, this week. And it's really powerful, it's poignant. And when I was asked to have a conversation with you about this film, it was a combination. I love the story, and I also felt like it almost paralleled a lot of your own journey.
Sure.
And so I just want to take a few minutes and have
Absolutely.
a conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to discuss whatever you like. It's an honor to be here, and it's a really special film, and it does have themes that resonate with me in my life, that I connect to from my own family life, from my own personal life, and also from, it was really meaningful to get a chance to play this performance. But most importantly, it's I've come to look at my career in a different lens as I've gotten older and has had some success and some failure, and to establish my own set of standards a little bit more. What kind of movies do I want to leave behind, instead of worrying about what's going to make money or what's going to be cool or what's going to get likes on Instagram? What do I personally care about? What reaction will I have to people who see it? And this is that kind of movie. So I'm very excited.
It seems that there's such a dramatic difference in the films that you direct and that you write, and there's a depth to them. There's a sense of authenticity and complexity. What draws you to a particular script? What draws you to a story?
One of the things that it's interesting, because this is a story that is about how do we really live our lives the best way? How do we recover from adversity? When we all suffer, we have grief. We have loss, we have pain, we have letdowns, we have disappointments, we have jealousy, we have tragedy. All of us is going to face these things in our lives. And it reminds me of, what was exciting to me about Good Will Hunting, which was a kind of a movie that broke me out in this business. It was about, for both Matt's character and Robin Williams' characters, like, how do you engage in life? How do you live according to like a set of values and principles that are important to you, that feel good to you, and that bring you towards a satisfied life? And the other themes that are really interesting to me that have kind of resonated throughout my career is who pays for the sins of the parents, often it's children, and without judgment, just exploring that truth, and then as I become a parent, I used to think of that and write about those stories from the point of view of a child who went through a difficult childhood, and now I think about it from the point of view of a father who's got to, and realizing and understanding that I'm carrying a responsibility that's not just to myself, but that's to my children. And that's a powerful recurring theme for me in my work.
The Way Back is clearly a story about second chances. My experience is we need a lot more than second chances.
Yeah, I have needed 27,432 chances.
And it kind of surprised me in paying attention to some of the conversations you've been in, because at first I was really intrigued, because I didn't think you had any kind of faith background at all. And so I was actually really intrigued because I thought you were an atheist, and I thought, oh, this will be so much fun. And,
no, we go to church every Sunday. I'm missing Pastor Wayne and the church on Sunday this morning with Jen and the kids to be here. But then one of them had a birthday party. They're like, well, if Dad's not going to church, and Jen said he's going to a different church. Yeah.
So did faith inform this film for you?
Very much. Faith is a big theme of this film. And faith is something that I have, and as also something that's been a struggle for me. As going to church, and I really find the Christian teaching beautiful and moving. And the hard thing for me is to really, when I struggle, when I suffer, when I see things that are painful, I have doubts. How is there a God that allows this to happen? How does this, the For example, in this movie, there's the grief of the loss of a child, which seems like the most senseless and terrible thing in the world. And how can there be a guy? And I don't have a sense of an anthropomorphized, sort of guy up there pushing buttons. That seems hard for me. And so it's, but the 12-step program also, is faith-based. And there we go, congratulations. And it encourages us to focus on and to think about what is God's will. And one of the things that somebody said to me once was like, you don't need to ultimately be sure. You need to seek. Can you seek God? Can you look for God? The guy I was having this conversation with, well, I have a hard time believing in God. I don't know. Is God there? Is God not there? Just relax. Can you seek God? Can you look? I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And the more I did that, and the more I allowed it to become something that didn't have to be a final determination or me saying I have the answer or I know what's right, but just a search for a higher power, for a higher mission, for a higher meaning, for what was really important in life in the world, and for a God. That started to connect to me more deeply to faith. And in that faith has served me well in recovery as an alcoholic, and has, and there is that sort of thing that the thing that sort of that I keep coming back to with faith is there is a part of us inside, like a tuning fork, we sort of know when we're on the right path. There's something that we can feel and that sort of resonates. And the idea that is, whether you want to call it God's will or God's voice or what God gives us or leaves us or, we have that, the Buddhists call it Buddha nature. Whatever, to me, that feels like something I can connect with. And I really love the notions in the teachings in Christianity at our church about redemption, about starting off and accepting we're flawed. We're all flawed. That's how we were made. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have problems. We're all going to have setbacks. It's about how do we aspire to be better, to be higher, to rise above that stuff, to get past these difficulties. And some things, there are some things that don't get cured. My mother's best friend just passed away last week from ALS, and it's just very painful. And I was speaking to her daughters, and there are no words to console. And sometimes you do have to just have faith that that there is meaning, and that life is good, and that people are basically good, and that we want to love and care for one another, and that's the best we can do. And that faith, that notion of faith, is really present in this movie because as this character suffers goes through divorce, alcoholism, and obviously this grief. I'm giving part of it away, but you find out that it's a deeper source of grief. He's got to, find his faith and help his faith, allow himself to get in touch with his faith, and to allow sometimes to make that leap to believe when he's not sure.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I have not revealed anything from the film, but you've disclosed a whole lot. And but I've been really careful with the plot and all the twists.
I feel like this is sort of a different vibe, so give it away.
You had some interesting insights, I think, on grace and forgiveness, and it made me think a lot this week about how Jesus didn't just redefine our relationship with God as a God of grace, but he actually almost created a revolution saying we should give grace to each other.
I find that so powerful, really moving and compelling. The idea that God, Jesus loves us and forgives us, all of us, everybody, no matter all the people that you think are great, and all the people that you want to judge and want to be angry at, and if God loves all of us and then encourages us all to love one another and not to judge one another and to forgive one another, I find that incredibly moving. That's really God setting an example for us for how we might be. And one of the things I found about forgiveness, that's so moving, and that always moves me as it comes up thematically at church, is that, it's the really interesting thing I find is like there are people that I have a lot of resentments for, and hard for me to forgive. Somebody once, so I'll carry a grudge, like they did this to me, whatever. And somebody said at church, that's like taking poison and so hoping someone else will die. You're holding on to this anger, and that the forgiveness is really a gift to the person who's able to forgive. The other person's off doing their thing. They don't even probably know you're thinking about them or whatever they're doing. They're at Six Flags. And you're sitting there mad and hurt and burning and creating a sort of lesser self. And to be able to let that go is actually a tremendous gift to the self. And the second thing that I found about forgiveness is that the hardest person, it turns out, to forgive really when you get deep down is yourself. For your own failings, for my own failings, for the ways that things that I regret, and I regret things that I wouldn't necessarily do differently, but I regret that, it happened. I think, I'm a child of divorce. I think it was right for my mother to ask my father to move out when I was 11. He had a lot of problems. He wasn't able to handle being a father. I had a different story in my own marriage, but I think we came to a judicious, healthy decision for us. And yet the regret that's there is because I know that causes pain to children. So, even choices that you think are, okay, this is the right positive choice and it's thought out and constructive, can leave you with a lot of pain and regret. And when it comes down to is about forgiveness is like, if, God can forgive me, maybe I can forgive myself.
That's so good. Come on, we can give that up. That's beautiful. That's so good. I wanted to ask you, because you've lived a very public life, and I think one of the hardest things in the world is to live a public life. And we live in a culture that always, that seems predisposed to define people by their worst moments. And one of the things we say over and over again here is that one of the powerful things about who Jesus is that he will not define you by your worst moments, but by your best moments. And I just wanted to ask you, what's one of the best moments that you've had in your life, if you would share with us?
Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, I think that philosophy is fabulous. And I think it's true in terms of my work, like in terms of movies or, directors and actors I'm going to work with. And someone will go, well, they were in this and such. I think judge me by my successes, not by my failures, because we're all going to fail. Yep. All of us is capable of failing. But then there are people who are capable of moving past that, doing something exceptional, rising above that,
Yep.
facing their own personal demons and getting past the negative judgments and opinions of others. Those are the people I want to be around. Yep. Those are the people I want in my life. Those are the people I want to work with. And so that's, it's that kind of feeling of we're all doomed to spend some time, to have a bunch of failures, and I've had plenty, and I've also had great times. The greatest, deep, most powerful moments in my life have to do just with time with my children, and times I've spent with them, and moments where they've come up with stuff. I mean, I had an incredible moment with my son, who's 8, who said to me the other day, I said, "What do you want for dinner?" It was his birthday, and Jan and I were doing a party and the whole thing, and he said, "Dad, I just want any meat that's had a good life." I was like, wow. That is the love. That is like the love of children, the innocence of children, the empathy of children. That moved me more than Pearl Harbor, Some of Our Fears. It's that was so incredibly powerful. And the idea that you're being responsible for raising good, healthy human beings is, I love my career and I love in Hollywood, and there's got some great stuff in it, but relative to that stuff with my children, you can keep it. You know what I mean? This is really what I'm invested in. But, I have had some lovely times. I thought my career, at one point I thought I was pretty much cooked. In 2000 and going back a while, but 2003, 2004, I had three or four movies in a row that didn't work. It was very cool to make fun of me. Maybe it still is. I just don't look anymore.
By the way, I think your childhood favorite hero was Daredevil.
Yeah.
And that was mine as well.
Oh, really? Yeah. And then I wanted to make that movie, and then the movie was successful, but we got criticized. Didn't really work as well as we wanted to. It was also right before the effects kind of made those movies more convincing. I look at Daredevil now, I'm like, that's like a guy on a wire flipping, Iron Man just flies. I had a moment where, and then I did this movie, Surviving Christmas, which was a real blessing to me. It's interesting. Some of the movies that haven't been successful have been the biggest blessings for me in my life. One of this movie, Surviving Christmas, which was a comedy, which didn't work at all and was on the heels of other movies. But I got to know James Gandolfini, who was a wonderful guy who was dealing with, some issues that have, we connected over personal stuff, and that was really meaningful. But after that screening, I went and screened it for the studio, and my last few movies had bombed, and this movie looked like, and I was with my agent. It was like one of my best friends, and he's been my agent for 20 years and more than that. And we got up, and all the studio and everyone had left by the end. And we walked out in the studio, and I looked around, and like people are gone. Like in Hollywood, if people don't want to like kiss up to you, that's the end. So I was like, wow, I'm not even worth schmoozing with. And I knew like this is going to be a momentous setback for me professionally. And at that point, we talked about like directing and changing course and trying to like okay, I'm going to accept this as a setback. It's going to be a lasting one and a heavy one. And then many years later, I won the movie Argo won Best Picture. And as I was accepting that, I remembered that moment, which was 10 or 12 years before, and my life was completely different. And I was able to get up on stage and accept this praise in a way that was healthy, and then make me think I was a genius, and I wasn't going to let haters make me think I was awful. I just found a measured way to go, okay, this is nice, and to enjoy it. I was able to thank my kids. That's probably one of the most memorable, moments in my career, because I remembered, that there was a point where it felt hopeless. I felt like a disaster. I felt like my career's over. I got my shot and did a few movies, now I'm done. And yet I was able, through sort of working hard and really through the help and support of loved ones and people I care about, to get to a better place, and through faith.
That's good. What strikes me, Ben, is that we've watched your career. It started out so powerfully with Good Will Hunting, and then you, as you described, you had some times that seemed like it was almost over, and now you would be clearly one of the most respected filmmakers in the industry. And every moment you talked about that was special and significant for you was about relationships, about your kids, about people in your life. And yeah. I just want to tell you, I know that in the same way your career has taken a massive upswing, I know your future is going to be way better than your past.
Thank you so much.
And we want to celebrate that with you.
When I was young and I started out, I was kind of, when you're not mature, the problem is with being immature is that you don't know you're immature. You actually think you have all the answers. Like, you can't see, my glass is actually half empty. It's actually 3/4 empty. The curse of, and it's also the blessing, because when you're young, you also think like, what can happen? You know what I mean? How bad can it be? We'll go out and try to make it in the movie business and write our own script. You're not smart enough to know like, that can never work, But I definitely sort of, as I kind of moved forward and learned more about life, I found that I went from a place where I was really cared about, is everyone else going to like it? What's everyone else going to think? I hope people like me. I hope I get this part. I hope I find external approval from someone else, family, friends, people out there in the world, and then on the internet and so on. And then looking back, and I'm now, I'm not, by Hollywood standards, I'm 732, but I'm only 47 years old. And yet, having a 20, 25-year career, looking back, there are movies I'm really, really proud of, because I was able to see, and there are some moments that have really touched me when I've connected with people who've connected with the movies. But when I look back on my life and I think about what matters, I find that the only real obituary that carries any weight for me is the one that I'm going to leave in the heart and the mind of my children. Someone's going to ask them, hey, what kind of guy was your dad? That answer that they give in 20 years and 50 years, whatever it is the most relevant thing to me in my life right now. And thinking and being mindful of that. And the people who I've, also, even if you don't have children, like the friends who I've loved, the people who I've reached out to, the people who have supported me, those relationships that I've fostered and carried over the years have been more important to me than the professional achievements. And I thought it was all about, like, once I get that trophy, I'm going to be happy. Once I get that check, I'm going to be happy. If I get that car, I'm going to be happy. If I get a faster broadband internet connection, I'm going to be happy. And it turns out, broadband and awards, and all of that stuff doesn't make you happy. It just moves the goal line. It just puts you chasing more things, craving more pleasure. The idea that's external, and it's not. It's inside, and the way you reach inside is through faith and through what resonates with what you feel like are your values and what you feel is important as a human being, and who you love and how you love them and how you forgive and how you show kindness. You know, I'm working with this guy. This is like a small gesture, for example, but I'm doing a movie now. I just came back from France because of my son's birthday, and I'm working with Adam Driver's in the movie. And I mentioned he's fabulous. And I mentioned to Adam, just in an offhand way, you know, hey, my son, like, really, like, he knows that me and his mom do movies, and those are fake, but he's like, Star Wars is real. Like, that is actually happening now. You know what I mean? I told him I was doing a movie with Kylo Ren, and he was like, but how are you with Kylo Ren? Well, who are you? His brain was breaking. Like, he was like, but you're not in space? And I said, yes. And he's like, but good Kylo Ren, right? Yeah, he's good now. He's good. He's good. Found redemption. And then, you know, I didn't think anything of it. And I came back from France, and I was rushing, and it turned out that there was a mix-up in the presents that I had ordered for my son. And I landed from the airport, go to there, and we were going to meet up at his birthday party, and the presents hadn't shown up. And I was like, you know, in a divorced family, split family, I mean, all this stuff, my young son, and I thought, I was so upset. Like, I'm going to show up there with no gifts. And then somebody came in and said, oh, you got these packages. I said, what is this? I said, well, Adam wants to send some gifts for your son. Went and found my address from the assistant, went out and did it on his own, and I was able to bring these two presents. I said, these are actually my presents who are coming later, but these are from Kylo Ren. Those little moments of grace, those little moments of kindness that we do for other people, we don't even know sometimes what they'll mean. You know, and I think of that, like, every time somebody says, hey, can I get a picture? I mean, you know, or do you know, like, take people in your life who need a little help, those little phone calls saying, hey, I heard, even if you heard, like, somebody lost their job or had a disappointment or had you know, suffering somehow, those moments where you reach out and connect, that's what makes up the deepest and most powerful fabric of our lives. Adam Driver can ask me to do anything. You know what I mean?
That's so good. Just one last thing. We are a church, and we'd love to know what's something we could pray for you about.
Thank you very much. The things that are the most important to me, and I always feel like I have to get over that notion of selfishness when you ask other people to pray for you. Like, I think, gosh,
it's okay, be selfish.
There's so many things to pray for. There's so many problems in the world. You know, I'm very fortunate and blessed. You know, on balance, I see my life, and it's, you know, it's really good today. You know, I'm really blessed. You could pray for me to maintain the feeling and perspective of what's important that I have today. You could pray for me to remember that to know the fights that I can win and the fights that I can't win. You know, I can't win the fight between drink number 2 and number 6. You know what I mean? So I'm just not going to fight that fight. And knowing which fights to avoid, sobriety, health, mostly being a connected and good father. I'm blessed with a wonderful, you know, my ex-wife and the mother of my kids is wonderful, and she does she does a fantastic job in assessing, you know, helping co-parent. And I would just pray for, you know, for me to continue to be able to see how I'm connected to other people, to find love, to find forgiveness, both for myself and others. And I guess you could pray for the movie this weekend if you're getting extra time.
All right, guys. The Way Back, opening today?
Oh, Friday the 6th.
Opening Friday the 6th. The Way Back, starring Ben Affleck. I'm going to shamelessly ask you to go promote it, go see it, bring people to it. The success of films allows you to make more films.
Yes.
So we want this film to be really successful so that Ben Affleck can use his genius, his creativity, and his newfound intention to tell stories that make the world a better place.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, I'll see you out. Thank you.